Have you ever stopped, sat down in a quiet space, and was alone with your thoughts? What did it tell you? What did it say? Have you ever thought about just rethinking the next steps in your life? Have you ever thought about taking the next steps in your life, but never sat down and said, how do I do that? That's what I want to talk about today. Hey, y'all. Welcome back to Walking It Out. I am your girl, Latrice Clark Jordan, and I am so glad you're here. Because today's episode is the beginning of something really foundational. We are starting with the first step in my walk framework, the W. Where are you now? And I want to be honest with you. This question sounds simple, but it is one of the most powerful and often avoided questions you can ask yourself. So many of us want change. We want healing. We want clarity. We want a new beginning. Excuse me. But the truth is, you cannot move forward clearly if you're not honest about where you are currently. And I don't just mean physically. I mean emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Where are you really? Because a lot of times we skip this step. We just jump straight into what's next. How do I fix this? How do I get out of this season? But we haven't paused long enough to ask, what season am I actually in? And I'm going to be real with you. There were seasons in my life where I did not want to answer this question because the truth felt uncomfortable. There were moments where, if I was honest, I would have had to admit I was hurt, I was confused, I felt lost, I'm starting over, and I don't even recognize myself right now. And let me tell you something. Avoiding that truth didn't help me move forward faster. It kept me stuck longer. Because you can't heal what you won't acknowledge. And you can't move with intention if you're unclear about your starting point. That's why W, where are you now, is the first step in the walk framework. Because this is where your journey actually begins. Now, where you wish you were, not where you wish you were, not where you used to be, not where you think you should be, but where you are right now. This step requires honesty, it requires stillness, and it requires courage. Because sometimes the hardest thing to do is sit with yourself long enough to tell the truth. And I know that's easier said than done. Because the truth can be a heavy thing to hold. But staying in denial, well, that's even heavier in the long run. So I want to take you somewhere personal for a minute, because I think the best way I can teach this is by showing you what it looked like in my own life. There was a season, and some of you heard me reference this in episode 1, where I was going through to end my first marriage. I was a single mom. I was starting completely over in a new state. And if someone had sat me down and asked me, Latrice, where are you right now? I honestly don't know if I could have answered that question truthfully. Because answering it would have meant admitting how lost I felt. It would have meant sitting with the grief, the confusion, the fear, the identity crisis that came with losing the life I thought I was going to have. And that felt like too much. So I kept moving. I kept performing. I kept putting one foot in front of the other. And from the outside, it probably looked like I had it all together. But on the inside, I hadn't stopped long enough to even ask myself, how are you doing, Latrice? Where are you really? And that avoidance cost me. Because I was trying to heal without actually diagnosing the wound. I was trying to move forward without acknowledging where I was starting from. Does that sound familiar to anybody? Have you ever just stayed busy to avoid the truth of where you were? Because that's what most of us, or many of us, do. We stay in motion so we don't have to sit still long enough to feel what we're really feeling. We stay busy so we don't have to hear what God might be trying to say to us. We skip the awareness step because awareness means accountability, and accountability can feel uncomfortable. But here's what I've learned. Discomfort is the awareness step. It's not a sign you're doing something wrong. It's a sign you're doing something necessary. Okay. So let me teach this out a little bit because I want you to really understand what this step is asking of you. When I say, where are you now? I'm talking about 4 dimensions, and I want you to think about each one. First, where are you emotionally? What feelings are you carrying right now? What is sitting in your chest that you haven't fully named yet? Grief, anxiety, numbness, loneliness, joy, hope? Maybe it's a mixture of all of it. You're allowed to feel more than one thing at a time, but you need to know what you're feeling. Okay? Second, where are you mentally? What narratives are running in your mind on repeat? What stories are you telling yourself about who you are, what you deserve, what's possible for your life? Because the mental space we live in shapes everything. If you're in a season where your mind is cluttered, distracted, or full of doubt, that is important information. Okay? Third, where are you spiritually? How is your relationship with God right now? And I want you to be honest. Not the Sunday answer. The real answer. Are you close? Are you distant? Are you angry? Are you questioning? Are you grateful? Are you going through the motions? Because your spiritual location matters. And so let me pause just to say that when I was going through that transition in my life back in 2016, I was distant from God. I was a little angry. I was questioning. I was doing all of the things. Because I was like, God, what in the world? Like, what's really going on? And my locator was off. I started praying because I'm a prayer warrior. And I started to regain a little bit of peace back. But it took me a while. Because I was like, you know how the compass, when you don't know where you're going, it just like does all this weird stuff and there's not a clear direction. That was me. But thank God for Jesus. Anyway, fourth, where are you relationally? Who is in your life right now? Who is pouring into you? And who is draining you? What relationships are thriving? And what relationships are struggling? Because the relational environment you're in is part of your starting point. Now, I want to ask you a few questions. And I want you to really sit with them, not rush past them, not give surface level answers, but really take a moment, ask yourself, what season of life am I in right now? What feels heavy in this season? What feels unclear? What am I avoiding? What emotions keep coming up for me? Where do I feel stretched or even broken? And here's the important one. Am I being honest with myself about where I am? Y'all, I want to sit here for a second because these questions are not rhetorical. These are the kinds of questions that when you actually answer them honestly, they can change the direction of your season. When I finally got still enough to ask myself these questions in that hard season, I mentioned earlier, when I finally stopped running from the truth and just sat with it, it was painful. But it was also clarifying. And clarity, even when it hurts, is a gift. Excuse me. Because once I could actually name where I was, I could start to figure out the path forward. Not before that. After that. There is a scripture that speaks so beautifully to this step. And it's found in Psalms 139, verses 23 and 24. It says, "Search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there is any offensive way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting." Y'all, that is what this step is. It's an invitation. It is saying to God, search me. Know my heart. Know my anxious thoughts. See what's really going on in here, and then lead me. Because awareness with God is never meant to shame you. It's meant to guide you. God doesn't show you where you are to condemn you. He shows you where you are so he can meet you there. And I don't know where you are right now, but God does. He's not afraid of the truth of your situation. He's not overwhelmed by your mess. He's not surprised by your struggle. He knows. And he's asking you to come to him honestly. So, your takeaway for today is this. Like I've always said, you don't need to have everything figured out. You don't need to have a full plan. You don't need to know all of the next steps. But you do need to know your starting point. Because clarity begins with honesty. And once you know where you are, you can begin to move forward with intention. That is how you start walking it out. So this week, I want you to take some time, even if it's just 10 quiet minutes, and sit with yourself. Journal it out. Pray about it. And ask, where am I now? Not to judge yourself, but to meet yourself in truth, with truth and grace. Because this is where your transformation begins. Are you going to promise me you guys will do that? Because I've been doing that. And it's been helpful. Even now, going through this next transition in my life, it's been helping me. And when I say next transition, I mean I have a daughter who's becoming a rising senior. So she's my firstborn. So that's a transition in my life and in hers. But as a mom, I am getting ready to release my first little chick out of the nest and learning how to navigate that. So what I've been doing is writing down, like, where am I now? And I've been a bit emotional for quite some time because I'm like, this is my first kid. And some people may say, oh, this is what you raising them for. This is the point and the part where you're excited and you're feeling all of these wonderful emotions. All of that is true. Yes, this is what I'm raising them for. This is what me and my husband are raising our children for. This is what we are living for, to raise our children, to grow up, get a college education, be educated, get a great job, live a life that's fulfilling, with God leading, all of the things, all of the wonderful things. But this is my firstborn out the gate. So I'm all over the place. So what I've been doing is writing down my emotions. And what I plan to do, and some of you, if you're in this space and in this boat, you can do it too. Write down every emotion, everything I'm feeling, good, bad, and different. And I plan to, next year when she goes off to college, mail it to her. So she can read everything I've been feeling the entire year of her senior year. And praying, my prayers, hopefully she keeps it and she cherishes it. And I'll do that for my other daughters too. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to make this pod or this episode, because of another transition that I'm going through. This transition is mom transition, transitioning one kid out the door and then bringing up the next. So I sat down, wrote, where am I now? And that's what I came up with. So, sorry, that was kind of like a sidebar moment. Anyway, before I end this episode, I want to reiterate. So this week, take some time, 10 quiet minutes, 5, however much time that you have. Sit with yourself. Journal, pray, think, whatever you do for your quiet minutes and your quiet moments. You can ask yourself that question, where am I now? And like I said, not to judge yourself, but to meet yourself with truth and grace, because this is where your transformation begins. Okay, guys? So, as always, thank you so much for walking with me today. If this episode spoke to you, share it with someone who may need this reminder. And don't forget to subscribe so you can continue this journey with me as we walk through each step of the walk framework together. Thank you for listening. Until next week, I am your girl, Latrice Clark Jordan. And as always, have grace for yourself.